You are made of atoms, that much you know. Every particle of your body, skin, bone, blood, the neurons firing right now as you process these words, is built from atoms. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, a handful of others in smaller quantities, assembled into molecules, assembled into cells, assembled into you. You learned this early and it became background knowledge, the kind of fact that sits comfortably in the mind without disturbing anything. You are made of atoms. Fine, noted, moving on. But let me ask you something you were never asked in the classroom where you learned that fact. What is an atom exactly? Not the name, not the category. What is the thing itself in the most honest physical description available to science right now? Because when you follow that question all the way down, past the diagrams with the neat spheres and the orbital rings, past the chemistry, past even the standard physics, you arrive at a description of matter so unlike the solid, substantial, real thing you assumed atoms were, that the word exist starts to lose its grip. The atom is not what you think it is. And if the atom is not what you think it is, then you are not what you think you are. And if you are not what you think you are, then the question of whether you exist in any meaningful sense becomes genuinely, precisely, physically open. What is an atom? State it honestly, follow it down, and see what is left at the bottom. The answer is going to dissolve something you did not know you were holding on to. Now let's build the intuitive picture carefully because it developed for good reasons. The atom as a tiny solid sphere, or as a nucleus orbited by electrons, like a miniature solar system, is a model that works extraordinarily well for chemistry, for material science, for understanding why elements combine the way they do. Bohr's model of the atom, which most people picture when they hear the word, correctly predicts the spectral lines of hydrogen. It is not a random invention. It captures something real about how atoms behave. And the atom itself, the indivisible unit of matter, was a concept precise enough and real enough that it underpinned the entire periodic table, all of organic chemistry, all of molecular biology. Atoms are real. Their effects are measurable. Their combinations are predictable. Dismissing the atom as unreal would be absurd. You might say, whatever atoms are at the quantum level, they behave like solid, definite things at the scale I operate at. The strangeness is in the details, not in the substance. That is a reasonable position held by many working physicists. Let's check whether the strangeness stays in the details when you look carefully at what the atom actually is. If you want to understand how the universe actually works, not just how it looks, but how it works, hit that subscribe button. We are going to take things apart and see what makes them tick. Let's find things out together. Here is the first step down. An atom consists of a nucleus, protons and neutrons bound together, surrounded by electrons. The nucleus is tiny, even relative to the atom. If you scaled a hydrogen atom to the size of a football stadium, the nucleus would be a marble at the center. The electron would be somewhere in the stands. Everything between the marble and the stands is empty space, not filled with anything, not occupied by any substance. Just the electron's probability distribution, which is a mathematical description of where the electron might be found if you looked. Most of the atom is not there. But let's go further. The protons and neutrons in the nucleus are not fundamental. They are composed of quarks. 2 up quarks and 1 down quark in a proton, 1 up quark and 2 down quarks in a neutron, bound together by the strong nuclear force, mediated by particles called gluons. The quarks are, as far as current physics can determine, fundamental. No internal structure has been found. And here is where the description becomes genuinely strange. A quark is not a tiny solid ball. A quark is an excitation of a quantum field, not a particle sitting in a field the way a boat sits in water. The quark is the field doing something. It is a localized disturbance in an underlying mathematical structure that permeates all of space. The quark does not have a precise location. It does not have a precise momentum. It exists between measurements as a probability distribution, a smear of potential presence spread across a region of space with no definite position until something interacts with it. Here is the analogy that makes this tangible. Imagine the surface of a still pond. Now drop a stone. A ripple spreads outward. a disturbance in the water, moving, carrying energy, having real effects. Now ask, where is the ripple? It does not have a location the way the stone has a location. It is a pattern in the water, extended across a region, not a thing sitting at a point. The ripple is real. It will rock a boat, it will reflect off the bank, but it is not a thing. It is an event in a medium. A quark is the ripple. The quantum field is the pond. Do you see what happens? Now follow this upward. The proton is made of quarks, which are excitations of quantum fields. The atom is made of protons, neutrons, and electrons, which are all excitations of quantum fields, bound together by forces that are themselves mediated by the exchange of other particles, which are also excitations of quantum fields. The molecule is made of atoms interacting through electromagnetic forces. Photons exchange between electron clouds, which are probability distributions of field excitations. The cell is made of molecules. The organ is made of cells. You are made of organs. At every level of this description, you are looking at patterns in fields, organized into larger patterns, organized into larger patterns still, until you reach the scale at which the patterns are complex enough to generate the experience of being a person who is reading this sentence. There is no solid stuff at the bottom. There is no substance that the patterns are patterns of, in any sense that the word substance usually implies. There are quantum fields, mathematical structures defined by their symmetries and their interactions. And there are excitations of those fields. And there are the patterns those excitations form. And there are the patterns of patterns, and the patterns of patterns of patterns, all the way up to you. Now I want to take this deeper, because if there is no solid substance at the bottom, the question of what it means to exist becomes genuinely difficult to answer. Existence, as we normally use the word, implies definite presence at a definite location. A thing exists if it is somewhere doing something with definite properties. But a quantum field excitation does not have definite properties between measurements. The electron in your atom does not have a definite position. It has a wave function, a mathematical object that encodes the probability of finding it in any particular location if you look. Before you look, the electron is not in one place. It is in a superposition of many possible places, each with its own probability amplitude. This is not ignorance. This is not a failure of measurement precision. This is the actual description of what the electron is doing, confirmed by decades of experimental tests so precise they are among the most accurate in the history of science. The electron does not have a definite position before measurement. The definiteness is created by the interaction, not revealed by it. This is the part that keeps me up at night, because here is the implication stated without softening. You are made of atoms. Atoms are made of particles. Particles are excitations of quantum fields. Quantum fields do not have definite values at definite locations between interactions. They exist as superpositions of possibilities that become definite only through interaction with other systems. Your body is engaged in an enormous number of such interactions every second. Thermal collisions, electromagnetic interactions, the constant churning of biochemistry. So in practice, the quantum indeterminacy of your constituent particles averages out at the scale of your body, and you behave as a definite, located, solid object. But the definiteness is not intrinsic to the matter. It is a consequence of the interactions. Remove the interactions, cool the system to near absolute zero, isolate it from its environment, and the quantum behavior reemerges. The definiteness was never fundamental. It was statistical. It was the behavior of an enormous number of probabilistic events averaging into something that looks certain from the outside. You are a statistical regularity in a field of probabilities. Your solidity is a consequence of scale, not substance. And now bring this to the most personal level. You, the continuous, unified, persisting self that feels like the subject of your experience, are a pattern in those statistical regularities. Not just the atoms, but the specific arrangement of the atoms, the specific configuration of the molecules, the specific connectivity of the neurons, the specific history encoded in the synaptic weights of your brain. That pattern is real. It has real effects. It generates real experience. But it is a pattern in probability distributions, organized through interaction, maintained by constant energetic expenditure, with no solid substance at its foundation. You are a shape that matter is holding, and the matter itself at the bottom is not matter in any sense that the word usually implies. It is mathematics. It is symmetry. It is the behavior of fields that have no color, no texture, no weight, no location, no properties at all except their interactions with other fields. The universe is not made of stuff. It is made of relationships between things that have no properties except their relationships. But here is what I keep returning to when I follow this to its end. The dissolution of substance at the bottom does not dissolve the reality of the pattern at the top. The ripple is real. It rocks the boat. It reflects from the bank. The fact that it is a disturbance rather than a thing does not make it less real. It makes it differently real. A pattern that persists, that maintains itself, that has causal power, that generates experience, that is a kind of existence. Not the existence you assumed when you were told you were made of atoms, something more fragile and more extraordinary. You do not exist the way a rock exists. You exist the way a flame exists. You exist the way a piece of music exists, as a pattern unfolding in time, real in its effects, present in its moment, not reducible to the medium that carries it. The atom that proves you do not exist also proves something else. That existence was never about substance. It was always about pattern. And the pattern for now is you. If this twisted your brain a little bit, good. That means it's working. I'll see you in the next one.